That is a solar eclipse, which means that right now the moon is directly between the Earth and the Sun. Now, does that have any big impacts here on the planet? Well, it might have some. One thing that we do know that the moon does control is the tides here on the planet. And when the moon and the sun are in alignment like this, it actually creates a really big tide. Right now, the combined gravity of the moon and the sun is working together to pull all of that water on the sides of the planet around to the side of the planet that is facing the moon. And that is creating a big tidal bulge. And that tidal bulge is going to turn into a tidal wave that will then spread out through the oceans and eventually arrive on our shores here in Britain. It gets cloudy as soon as I deploy the colander. There you can see the colander effect working. See all the crepuscular rays emerging from the eclipsed sun. All the birds going crazy. So you can see Venus just there. So people who are using their colanders to look at the eclipse tonight are going to be a bit disappointed because the sun's just not strong enough to even cast a light through there. Good evening and welcome to the Severn Estuary. This is the site of one of the world's highest tides and also one of the world's largest tidal bores. It's about 2 days and 2 hours since we saw the eclipse, and in that time, that tide that the eclipse created has been moving through the global oceans, wrapping around coastlines, pushing up into estuaries and bays, and around lunchtime today it arrived just off the coast of Cornwall and entered the Bristol Channel. And since then, it's been roaring up through the Bristol Channel into the Severn Estuary, and in about a minute, it's going to arrive here. I can hear this rush of water, just listen to that. That is the tide arriving, the tide that was created during the eclipse. I can't see anything yet, but the wave is definitely here. Wow, gonna have to turn that off. Wow, that was an excellent bore. A really big tide there. Now we've got about half an hour to get off this beach before it goes underwater. So there we have it, the tide created by the Now in reality, the fact that the sun is eclipsed doesn't actually create a bigger tide than normal. You see, the sun and the moon actually line up every single month. That's why we have a new moon. When there's an eclipse, the tilt of the moon's orbit is just right that it blocks out the sun. However, it was still the largest tide of the tidal cycle, and it was still the tide that was created by the eclipse. So it's the day after the eclipse, and today was the hottest day of the year so far. This is my weather station and it's peaked at over 36 degrees today, so it's pretty hot. Most weather variables are actually in some way caused or linked to the sun. So there's a lot of ways that you can see a solar eclipse appear in the data when you get a good enough eclipse. I've had a look through the data from this weather station yesterday to see if there was any impact, and interestingly there was. So first of all, the solar power, that's pretty much the most direct impact. That's how much light and energy is coming from the sun. And you can see a notable drop during the eclipse time. It almost went to zero, in fact. So it just shows, even though it wasn't a total eclipse, how much it dimmed the light. The most impressive variable was the wind speed. So you often get this diurnal change in the wind with the peak wind speeds in the middle of the day while the sun is heating everything and the air is being moved around, and then the wind dropping off in the night down to almost zero in some cases, where the air all cools down and starts to settle and stops moving around so much. And what we saw during the eclipse was that the wind speed dropped to nothing. It completely went away, and then as soon as the sun came out again and started to heat things up, the wind suddenly kicked off again and started moving around. You can also see a change in the temperature and the humidity. Now this is very slight and it's very difficult to see because it's the evening, so everything was cooling down anyway. But if you compare the temperature change from the previous 3 days, you can see that during the eclipse there was a really steep drop in temperature. And humidity did a similar thing. There was a sudden, much steeper increase in humidity when the sun was eclipsed, which then dropped off immediately after the sun came back out. I can hear the rush of water coming over the sandbanks in the middle of the river here. That is the tide arriving, the tide that was created during the eclipse.